To TADC Online 2020, jointly organized by St. John's International Secondary School and Direct English Malaysia. I'm Miss Clara and I will be the host for today's event. TADC Online 2020 is organized as an alternative event to the highly anticipated Tunku Abdullah Debate Challenge, which would have advanced into its third edition this year, if not because of the COVID-19 pandemic, where organizing of a live debate would not be recommended. TADC Online 2020 has the ultimate aim of engaging the student community and all the other stakeholders of Tunku Abdullah Debate Challenge, or known as TADC, in a live network platform for the TADC spirit to continue to flourish and benefit them. We have with us today a distinguished panel of speakers who include Tunku Datuk Sri Dr. Iskandar bin Tunku Abdullah, Mr. Tony Collingridge, Tunku Halim bin Tunku Abdullah, Mr. Nigel Amrit Dusant, and Ms. Jazbir Kaur, who will be sharing with us on a range of very interesting topics. This will be followed by the debate showcase by students of St. John's International Secondary School before we end the event with the TADC Write a Slogan contest, where we would make announcement of how viewers could participate in this contest. We will have the first session by having Tunku Datuk Sri Dr. Iskandar bin Tunku Abdullah, TADC Chairman, who will be speaking on the topic Tunku Abdullah Debate Challenge, honoring the memory of the late Tunku Tan Sri Abdullah, son of Malaysia's first Yang di-Pertuan Agong.
Thank you, Clara. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning. Welcome to TADC 2020 Online, the Tunku Abdullah Debate Challenge with a twist. The TADC held its inaugural event in 2018 and was born originally out of an idea to bring together the desire of both Direct English Malaysia and St. John's International School to take private schools and public schools to a common platform to uplift the awareness and expertise in public debating in the English language at the secondary school level in Malaysia. In 2018, we had 20 teams from mostly international and some public schools in Malaysia. And in 2019, we had a very encouraging 34 teams with many more public schools participating. So it's not surprising that our expectations for 2020 was to have an even bigger participation. But the COVID-19 pandemic made it impractical to organize it in the same way, and hence, in 2020, it is the online TADC, as I said, with a twist. We had decided to name the debate challenge after my late father, His Highness Prince Abdullah or Tunku Abdullah Ibni Almarhum Tuanku Abdul Rahman, the son of Malaysia's first king, or Yang di-Pertuan Agong. He was a keen orator in his time and an adept debater himself, putting those skills to good use when he was in politics for many years and a member of parliament for 10 years, as well as a government backbench whip back in the 1960s. But his experience actually began many years ago before that. He had his first trial by fire after his 18th birthday in 1943, when the Japanese war colonialists put him and 14 other Malayans and Indonesian young men on a troop ship to Japan, where they were sent to different universities to learn the Japanese language and the Japanese way of life. He had to endure many hardships and tribulations. However, he was a survivor and he was able to adapt. When the atom bombs were dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which resulted in the Japanese surrender and the occupation by US forces, the Americans needed interpreters, and Tunku Abdullah negotiated his first job himself and for himself and other Malaysians who were by then fluent in Japanese. and of course already fluent in Malay and English, because English was the language used in Malayan schools like the Malay College and missionary schools like St. John's Institution. However, these amateur interpreters were not paid cash, but they obviously received perks such as food and cigarettes. After some months, he decided to negotiate his ride home to Malaysia, or rather his boat home, by taking several ships, first from Kobe to Hong Kong, and then from Hong Kong, yet another ship to Manila, and then another ship to Shanghai, and eventually, after 5 weeks, arriving in Singapore, where he again had to use his powers of persuasion on a taxi driver to drive him all the way from Singapore to Seremban without any upfront payment, because anyway, he had no more money left with him. He resumed his studies first in Raffles College in Singapore, and after that at Glasgow University in Scotland, where he studied public administration, after which he returned to Malaya to join the Malay Administrative Service. While in government service, he served several states, eventually rising up to the upper levels of the Malaysian civil service, having honed his acumen in administration, and after he left government service, he had his decade-long stint in politics. He moved from state to state, resulting in me attending actually 8 different schools, starting with St. Paul's Institution in Seremban. After his stint in politics, he also made his mark in bringing together the youth of Malaysia with the founding of MAYC, or the Malaysian Association of Youth Clubs, and later the Malaysian Youth Council. And on the world platform, he later established the Asian Youth Council and the World Assembly of Youth. And under him, MAYC built Wisma Belia. Well, it wasn't a very tall building, but it was a landmark building in Kuala Lumpur back in the 1970s. He then entered the corporate world, founding the family company, the Malawa Group, which went on to establish businesses in construction and property development, international imports and exports, insurance and financial services, advertising and public relations, travel and tourism, as well as education and training. He established joint ventures with companies from the UK, Australia, Indonesia, Japan, Switzerland, and China. And indeed, he got on very well with people of all kinds of nationalities. He brought his inborn and acquired skills of reasoning and argument to all the areas he was involved in public administration, in politics, and in business negotiations. He was also very adept in making speeches, and often did so off the cuff, not just in English and Malay, but also in Japanese. So I'm sure he'll be very gratified and happy and proud to know that we have established the TADC and that we have dedicated this debate challenge to his memory. So just a few words about debating. The well-known 18th century French essayist Joseph Joubert said, "It's better to debate a question without settling it than settle a question without debating it." And this is the whole essence of debating, to be able to put your points to the floor or on the table, and to be able to accept that the question may not be settled to your satisfaction. Of course, you may have read that in some parliaments overseas, they also take to throwing chairs across the aisle or shouting profanities, which is certainly not the way to make your point. Now, knowing how to debate is a skill that helps one develop critical thinking skills and to question the evidence behind a particular contention or assertion. The art of debate is where one has to use reasoning skills to prove your point. Therefore, it is one's sense of reasoning that will be judged, and not whether a particular point or argument is more popular or less popular. So we are much indebted to the acceptances by the speakers and panel of judges and experts consisting of people from a variety of backgrounds. And not least, I thank the organizing committee, namely Mr. Suresh Das, CEO, and Dr. Indrajit Singh, Head of School, and the management and teachers and staff of St. John's International School, and Mr. Philip Lim, CEO of Malawa Learning Resources or Direct English Malaysia, for so wholeheartedly putting this unique online debate together. I hope it will be a successful format, and if so, who knows? This may become the way of the future, to bring together teams that are unable to travel but yet able to pit their debating skills against each other. We may one day have teams from Malaysia debating with teams, say, from the UK or South Africa and Japan, without having to travel, without the attendant costs and time. So thank you, and do enjoy the morning with the 2020 online Tunku Abdullah Debate Challenge. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Tunku, for enlightening us about Tunku Abdullah Debate Challenge. Before we proceed further with the sessions that we have lined up together for us, we would like to present to you a video titled TADC 2018 and TADC 2019, The Journeys.
Right there, yeah, I'll give you a signal. Okay. Yeah.
Hello, which camera am I looking at? That one? Okay.
All right, 5, 4, 3, 2.
The second session is by Mr. Tony Collingridge, who was the grand final judge for TADC 2018 and 2019. And Mr. Collingridge will speak on the topic, debate as the fountain of new ideas.
Thank you, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to have been invited along for the third year running to the TADC online event. And I've really enjoyed the role of judging the finals of the TADC over the past 2 years. The standard of competition has been incredibly high, often leading me to have a fierce debate within myself as to which team is best. I'm never sure, actually, which side of that internal debate really wins, because in my opinion, and my humble opinion, everyone taking part is a winner. In truth, I was surprised to be invited as a judge initially, not least because I've never really seen myself as a skilled debater. However, when I was invited to speak to you this year as a part of this event, I realised that actually I've been associated with debates throughout my career. Very often, such debates have generated new ideas that changed my working environment for the better, and in some cases, they led to far more significant improvements as well. There's never been a more important time in my lifetime to encourage open, honest, and constructive debate in the world. You might ask why, so let me try and explain. When it comes to debate, one phrase stands out for me, even if as an Englishman, I get a little upset that it was expressed by a Frenchman. And the phrase, of course, is, "I disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it." And that, of course, was attributed to the French philosopher Voltaire. Whether or not Voltaire actually said those words or something similar is neither here nor there, but I strongly believe in that particular value. For me, it is the basis of all genuinely valuable and constructive debate, leading to new ideas that improve the world we live in. I was born some years after the Second World War, but I did grow up around many people who had experienced it. While the causes were many, the war arguably came about because of intolerant people who believed that only their ideology was right and their determination to impose that ideology on everyone else. No debate, no compromise, no new ideas. The world suffered terribly, but thank goodness those people did not win. And as a result, the world came together and created bodies in which all countries could be represented and resolve their issues through discussion and, of course, constructive debate. Result? Well, it hasn't been perfect, but there have been no global conflicts for 75 years. Jaw, jaw, not war, war, is another phrase I rather like, often attributed to Winston Churchill, who, of course, was an Englishman. Early on in my career, I was appointed parliamentary clerk to the British Secretary of State for Energy. And as a result, I spent a great deal of time in both chambers of the Houses of Parliament through a period where, for a while, the government held an enormous majority. It was my job to ensure that the department's proposed legislation was successfully passed into law and that government ministers were able to defend their energy-related policies during question time and debates in Parliament. With the government's huge majority in the House of Commons, I well remember the ease with which ministers were able to use parliamentary procedure to close down debates before anyone on the opposition side could express thoughts and views which were seen as difficult or might put government policies under an uncomfortable scrutiny. At the time, as a civil servant, I thought this was rather good. Far less work for me in preparing briefing and defensive lines, or even, Lord forbid, a suggested compromise or a change in policy. Where my work really started was in the House of Lords, where political divisions were far less stark, where many sensible and highly experienced people were able to suggest and fully debate constructive additions or alternatives to existing policy. Oh dear, my workload increased tenfold. But what was often the result? Well, apart from me developing my ability to manage irate ministers, new ideas, better law, and a better practical outcome for the country as a whole. I'm not taking sides in the political debate over the House of Lords in Britain, but that is what happens when you have open and constructive debate. It leads to the generation of new ideas. Earlier in my life, I was fortunate enough to go to the same grammar school as Sir Tim Berners-Lee, who is often honoured as the person who invented the World Wide Web. The initial idea was that the web would enable universities to exchange ideas and debate the course and value of particular pieces of research. The thinking was that this ability to broaden and share knowledge and to have a constructive debate between a more diverse group of academics would benefit the development of new research and teaching ideas. We all felt that the internet was an exciting idea. And to some extent, the original aims have been achieved, but I've been sad to note that Sir Tim himself has commented that the internet is being misused by those who, for their own purposes, wish to stifle constructive debate using threats, misleading statements and slurs. This is discouraging a wide variety of people from expressing genuinely held and constructive views. And we all know where this sort of approach has led us in the past. So it's good to note that a number of governments are addressing this issue, but there's still a way to go. So having the freedom and the confidence to debate openly and constructively is, in my view, vital if the world is to move forward in a positive manner. I say this with experience of the positive benefits. I recall considering the opportunity to come and work in Malaysia as the UK's Director for Trade and Investment back in 2010. One of the reasons I decided to compete for the role was that I was excited by the new economic transformation programme. All of those ideas and strategies would lead to so many opportunities to improve this country. It was only later that I discovered that many of these ideas had been generated through labs set up to debate the particular subject area with no restrictions on what ideas came through. I have rarely seen a better example of the benefits of constructive discussion and debate leading to the delivery of so many new ideas intended to benefit a country and its people. More widely, at an earlier stage in my career, I arrived in a job designed to attract new investment into the UK from the Asia-Pacific region. At the time, the UK attracted around 50 investment projects a year from the region. I was given the unenviable target of doubling this number within 2 years. And while I had a few ideas, I had no way of knowing whether or not they would be effective or how to implement them. As ever in government, I was also not given much of a budget to deliver either. Clearly, I needed help, but not just advice from individuals, but open, constructive debate among the team that I ran in London and Asia. And I took the decision to spend most of the small budget I'd got to bring us together to debate options for delivering this apparently impossible target. Ladies and gentlemen, the best thing I did in that process was to ask an open question: how do we do this? And then to ensure that the ensuing debate was as constructive and targeted as possible, allowing all the participants to express their views. We did not always agree. On occasions, strong passions were expressed, but we, not me, came up with a plan that everyone could accept and which I could then present to my organisation with confidence, knowledge, and the power of the fact that each and every strand of it had been thoroughly debated before being put forward. It was accepted. And ladies and gentlemen, in 2 years, we actually tripled the number of projects coming from the Asia-Pacific region. And by the time I left that role 11 years later, more than 400 projects were coming from the region each year. That is the power of debate. I can think of many other examples where debate is the fountain of new ideas, such as the role I share with others as a director on the boards of companies in Malaysia. Another is an example my wife shared with me from her MBA experience at Imperial College in London. On her first day, each member of her class was asked individually to undertake a survival exercise. They were then brought together in teams to undertake that same exercise. Without fail, all of the teams scored so much higher than any of the individuals had done, thanks to open, constructive debate on the questions asked. Ladies and gentlemen, I will just touch on the importance of the quality of debate, which of course is why we're all here. I'm sure you will have noticed that I've used the word constructive in every reference I have made to debate. That is a vital ingredient of any good debate. People are quite justified in complaining about the use of inappropriate language, references or inferences. But these concerns should not be used as a means of stifling debate, or dare I say, even denying history and factual events. The ability to debate constructively, openly, using all of the facts available is what makes a debate most effective and the outcome most beneficial. That is no doubt why contributions in parliamentary chambers are directed through the Speaker, and why in the British House of Commons at least the two front benches are carefully set 2 sword lengths apart to prevent accidents in the event that passions boil over. As is ever the case, education is the key. Constructive and effective debating is a huge skill which takes much time and practice to develop. In my own extended family, I'm delighted to see a number of its younger members taking part in debating clubs, and in one case being elected as president of their debating society. Here in Malaysia, the TADC is making a huge contribution to encouraging and developing the debating skills of young people. These young people are the future. They have the new ideas, the new way of thinking, and a new world to build. And I am confident that educating them to express themselves, to listen, to consider, and to debate constructively will ensure that they can all achieve their potential, deliver these new ideas, and lead us all into their new and better world. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Tony. Session 3 is by Tunku Halim bin Tunku Abdullah, who was also the grand final judge for TADC 2018 and 2019. And Tunku Halim will be speaking on the topic, Creative and Critical Thinking in Debate.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, I will be talking about creative and critical thinking in the debate. Let me first focus on the creative side of things. When I was approached about this topic, the first thing that came to my mind is going back 35, maybe even 40 years ago when I was at university, and I did attend a debate, and the person that was presenting one argument opened, well, first of all, the debate was about freedom of the seas. This is international law about whether we can navigate the seas freely or can countries stop and disrupt trade and travel on the seas. So this person opened the debate with, when you go home tonight, after you finish brushing your teeth, turn on your tap and see the water flowing out. And then, very quickly, grab the water. And when you look at your hand and see that there is no water there, then you will understand the problem that that team faces today. And everyone that was sitting there, you know, it was a long day at uni, and they were all looking quite bored. But when this guy opened with that, they stood up because, what's this guy talking about? Brushing teeth and turning on the water. So they started to pay attention. And after this guy said that, and that is the problem that these guys face today, they got really worked up, and so everyone came alive. So this was a creative opening. Unfortunately, this guy then started to quote about freedom of the seas, and he started to read. And it was quite a long quote. And that was a mistake, because then it became a little bit boring, because he was reading a long quote. But still, it was a good opening. And I'm happy to say that I was the debater. I was the one that was doing that. That's why I can remember very clearly. So that's a creative opening. You can use it at the beginning or any time during the debate. To make a debate interesting, there's nothing wrong with putting in a little joke, if you like, because people like to be entertained. People like to laugh. And so a joke, something which makes them laugh, can be memorable and can serve your cause, serve the point of view. You can also bring in analogies, if you like, because people see things very clearly when you have an analogy. So for example, if you're debating about the freedom of the seas, you can say, look, if you have a bath with still stagnant water, in the end it will turn brown, mosquitoes will breed in there, it will be smelly in the end. But if it was free and flowing, then we have clear, pristine water. So another analogy which you can see in your mind. You can use simple quotes. Again, it's in a creative way. So, be the change you want to see in the world. Very famous quote by Mahatma Gandhi. You can use that if it's appropriate, and the audience, the judges will remember. So that's creativity, creative opening, analogies, using simple quotes to, of course, to back up your argument. Critical thinking. When it comes to critical thinking, it is good that you have one point of view, but also to consider the opposite side's point of view, because then you know what their counter argument might be, and so you can have ways to deal with that. Keep your arguments simple rather than complex, because there is a lot of information going around, and simple ideas work. If the idea is too complex, the judges, the audience might find it hard to grapple with. So that is one thing to look at. So, another thing you can do when it comes to critical thinking is to focus on the opponent's mistakes, the things they are obviously going to say, and you can work out some counter arguments as to what their weaknesses might be. Also, when you're doing a debate, you will need to do a certain amount of research. So not everything that is written is true. There is a lot of stuff. I know we do a lot of research on Google, on the web. There's a lot of information out there. There is a lot of fake stuff out there. There's a lot of stuff which is just not true or not 100% true. So you really need to be very discerning about what you find on the web. I use Wikipedia a lot because I know there are a lot of inputs from many different editors. So that information tends to be quite reliable. Printed books tend to be quite reliable because it goes through an editing process. Usually a reputable publisher will publish information. But anyone, anywhere can publish anything on the web. So it can be full of lies. So you do need to be very careful with the information you find on the web. Also, do not rely so strongly on statistics. Yes, some statistics is good, but too much of it can overwhelm the audience, overwhelm the judges. So that's basically all I have to say on creative and critical thinking in the debate. I wish you best of luck today, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Tuku Halim, for your informative sharing. Now, the next session is going to be session 4 by Mr. Nigel Amrit Dusant, our TADC debate coach, who will speak on the topic, winning a debate from the perspective of a debate coach.
Morning, everyone. I just want to really quickly thank the organizers as well as the distinguished list of speakers. I'm very, very happy to be here. I thought I'd begin my speech with a very, very short, somewhat funny story. Now, as a debater, one of the things that predominantly takes place once a debate starts is something which we call asking for POIs, which are points of information. So basically, you have a speaker who's standing up there, and then at any given moment, when someone wants to ask them a question, they stand up and then they say POI, which means point of information. One of the best examples of this was when I was at a tournament just a few years ago when I was still debating actively. We had a very, very engaging speaker who stood up and started giving all his arguments, categorically. Immediately, all three of his opponents stood up simultaneously and said POI. All of them had something to say about his argument. So the speaker who was up there, visibly agitated, somewhat annoyed, looked at the three of them and said, "I'll take the ugliest one of you." Instantly, of course, that caused all of them to sit right back down. So this was one of the key highlights that I had, as a participant, as a debater. Now, of course, I don't do so much of that anymore because I mostly focus on the coaching aspect. When I was 19, I became a competitive debater at the recommendation of a very close friend. I was a sprightly teenager, as you would be at 19, and I had a very tumultuous mind. No proper outlet. I didn't really engage in bad habits, but definitely didn't have a proper outlet until I became a debater. One of the things I was most blessed with when I first became a debater is the fact that I had one of Malaysia's best debate coaches as my very, very first coach. In that sense, I had hit the jackpot as I became a debater. I won under his tutelage. I won my very first tournament just 3 months later. It was him who introduced me to an idea that I'd never really heard of before until that point. And that idea was that we needed to learn how to think rather than what to think. Most of the time, it's really easy to get locked down in dogma, whether it's religious values or cultural values, economic or political systems. It's really easy to get locked into dogma unless you have objective standards to compare that dogma to. And that was one of the predominant lessons that our coaches would continuously stress when he was teaching us. My coach understood a very important fact that one day, perhaps not too long in the near future, he wouldn't actually be around to look after us intellectually anymore, that we would be left to fend for ourselves, whether it was about religion, politics, economics, or societal issues. He knew that one day we would have to look after ourselves intellectually and should not fall prey to the ideas and systems that we don't necessarily understand. He also knew that without objective standards and critical thought, we will fall victim to ever-changing narratives and carefully constructed methods of persuasion. That, more than anything, was what shaped me as a debate coach. It's a common misconception that every time you win a debate or an argument, that you will in some way have changed the minds and hearts of the people that you've won over. We tend to feel like if I defeat this person, I am inherently, in some way or another, slightly smarter than that individual. It's one of the thoughts that tends to go through our heads. The truth is, right, every time we win a debate tournament, more than anything else, it is for the debater themselves. one of the first things that happens when someone is defeated, we would imagine that they would open their minds. They would be more receptive towards the ideas that have challenged their own ideas. Instead, the exact opposite tends to happen. When someone is defeated in a debate, the first thing that happens is what we call the hardening process. So this person begins to go through a cocoon phase. Instead of them, uplifting themselves and coming out of it, they tend to seal up, right? But a very strange thing begins to happen the more you lose a debate. On average in Malaysia at least, for every 70 or 80 tournaments that you don't win, you will eventually win one, right? So if you make it to 140 tournaments, you win 2, and then 210, 3, and so on. That's the average, at least in Malaysia. I worked it out with the debate coach. I don't know if it's correct, but that was the figure that we arrived at. But a very strange thing tends to happen after you've undergone that process, because when you do finally win a debate tournament, we imagine that these debaters go around patting themselves on the back, telling everyone what great debaters that they are. But the opposite is also true there. So instead of doing that, what actually happens is we become even more critical and analytical of the things that we are saying. We go back and forth, usually in the shower. Was I actually telling a lie? And that was credited from the judge. Was I actually telling the truth? Did my arguments have substantive value? Did my principle and value judgment arguments play out in that process? That's one of, I think, the most fascinating things about being in a debate. So what about the person who loses that particular debate? After going through that hardening process, or the cocoon phase, as we like to call it, at some point in time, given enough time and given enough patience, those individuals who had been losing debates in the past start winning debates as well, right? And that's where we talk about how the healing process begins in that individual's life and in their debating career as well. I think at this point, the problem from all the previous speakers that we've heard, the problem that we see arising, as well as why debating is so important, should become more evident. Most of us, whether we realize it or not, tend to shy away from debate and discourse. We say things like, that's not me. We'll say things like, I'm not the argumentative type. We say, I'm a peaceful person. I try to stay away from drama as much as I can. In a perfect world, that would be nice. And that would be something that we could actually do on a day-to-day basis. The problem is, of course, that even the most introverted, most peace-loving individuals still debate with themselves all the time, whether they like to realize it or not. The truth is, we all do this, but recognizing the fact that there are indeed better and worse ways to debate is probably the first step in nurturing a more rational, level-headed society. For me, as a debate coach, winning a debate is merely a means to an end, a remarkable tool that we created to clearly and coherently transmit ideas and correct them where they need correcting, as well as discard them when they need to be discarded. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nigel. Before we commence the debate showcase, we will have our speaker for session 5, Ms. Jasbir Kaur. Ms. Jasbir was a former national debate adjudicator for more than 20 years, and she will share with us on winning a debate from the perspective of a debate adjudicator.
Thank you, Ms. Clara. A very good morning. I bid the panel of honorable adjudicators, my worthy opponents, Mr. Speaker, mindful timekeepers, and members of my cabinet. Does that address sound familiar? Welcome to the arena of the TADC debates. My name is Jasbir, and I must confess I have a long-standing history with debates. Began debating at the age of 16 and graduated to be a national trainer and adjudicator. And on my learning curve, anything with a debate prefix became a learning tool for me to master my art of debate. It's been 3 decades now and counting. So guess I'm a debater for life. So here's the question I'm frequently asked: what it takes to win a debate? My answer is deceptively simple: the burden of proof. Now, what is the burden of proof? Simply put, how each team disarms and knocks out their opponent's claim by number one, prove their stance or case line with valid and reasonable logic. Number two, convince the audience and judges that they deserve to win. Based on my belief and my reinforced by my experiences and expertise, that team is a sure winner. Moving on. Today, I'm really honored to share this platform with my fellow esteemed speakers to offer you the tools of winning a debate from the perspective of a former national debate adjudicator. Personally, learning how to debate in high school is a hallmark of classical education. Winning a debate isn't about shouting at your opponent or being an effective orator. In reality, it's all about rhetorical techniques, structure, and know your audience. So what is a debate, you may ask? Essentially, a debate is an argument governed by rules. Suffice to say, it could also be known as a battle of intelligences, a verbal sparring match, a structured discussion. Regulated debates come in different forms known as styles, and each comes with its own set of rules and regulations. Asian parliamentary style debate follows a similar format to British parliamentary style debate, and TADC debates are based on this format. Why parliamentary? As its name suggests, it's modeled on the British Parliament system. Accordingly, motions begin with a phrase such as, "This House believes that," House referencing to Parliament. Watch WUDC or World University Debating Championships live, based on British parliamentary style debates, most popular worldwide these days. Motions are usually released 15 minutes before time, and you will see this is the platform of some of the world's great debaters who compete against each other on this platform. They are truly entertaining and very additive, and if you are aspiring to be a debater, watch them. Debating remains one of the best ways to hone the art of persuasion. In his work Rhetorics, Aristotle, the Greek philosopher, defines persuasion as the three artistic proofs. Interestingly, till today, some of the most influential speeches of our time are based on these timeless pillars of rhetoric, and which are considered the crown jewels of debating. Introducing the crown jewels: ethos, pathos, and logos. A combination of all these three artistic proofs allows any debater to deliver a powerful, convincing speech. While ethos focuses on you, the speaker, and your connection with the audience, logos focuses on the message, that is the logical reasoning, and pathos focuses on the audience, the emotional appeal. Watch the most famous pathos speech by Martin Luther King, "I Had a Dream," and the most powerful or influential persuasive speech by Barack Obama on his victory speech, which was a speech that overwhelmed most of us. Check out their speeches and the way they use the three ground jewels to persuade their audience. Quote, "It's the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it," unquote Aristotle. Debating offers this opportunity to question your views, challenge your thinking, and thoughtfully consider other viewpoints. Based on this premise, I've rounded up some top tips to prepare you and to help you to prepare, and deliver a memorable debate without the worry. So let's dive in. Now, I'm going to share with you 5 classical debating tips to prepare for a great debate. Number 1, a strong opening. A sure winner to engage your audience and to make the judges sit up straight in their chairs. You could begin with an emotional opener, you could add in a powerful statistics, or you could inject feelings into your opening lines, as mentioned by Tunku Halim bin Tunku Abdullah, with analogies, with anecdotes, and powerful quotes. Number 2, define the topic. After the opening, make sure your topic is crystal clear to your audience. Intelligent and straightforward definitions are rewarded. State your topic and your team's position on the topic. For example, today we are here to discuss the topic X. As the affirmative or negative team, my team firmly believes that Y, and make sure to define keywords in the context of the topic. It is challenging to debate someone when they have a different idea of the topic than you do. Make sure you and your opponents are on the same page. Number 3, signposting. Now, what do I mean by signposting? It's very critical in any good debate. I cannot stress enough how totally and completely is necessary in the structure of a good debate speech. Your audience might zone out after your introduction or in the middle of your argument. So you need to get them on track by using signposting, which is a simple and effective reminder to navigate your audience through the speech. To begin my case, I'm going to argue X, moving on to demonstrate Y, and will conclude by examining Z. So in this manner, you are able to flag the important parts of your argument, and this will be a great help to the audience as well as the adjudicators. Moving on, number 4 is the rebuttal. Just like in boxing, in debating sometimes the best offense is the good defense. And that's where rebuttal comes in. It's the crux of all debate proceedings. Rebutting arguments forces you to think on your feet. So here are my 2 golden strategies to make your challenge less daunting. Number 1, know your topic well. Number 2, know how to refute. Now, your delivery is key to convincing your judges of your viewpoint. Just as important as it is as what you say is how you say it. Strategy 1, understand your topic and research widely. Information is your great weapon in debating. Ensure arguments are supported by reliable and convincing research, credibility of sources, reliable references, current, and make them compelling. Consider persuasive techniques, the 3 pillars of rhetorics or the crown jewels of debating. A reality check. This concrete evidence helps prove your burden of proof and to counter your opponent's arguments. Strategy 2, I can't say enough, prepare, and prepare. This is arguably the most important debating skill of them all, as it affects many of the other debating techniques as well. For instance, if you prepare your material well, you'll be confident and more believable. And you will less likely go down rabbit holes, but instead more likely make a cohesive, bulletproof conviction. Play the devil's advocate and anticipate your opponent's claims. Have a mock session with your fellow teammates and coaches. After you've crafted your arguments, anticipate what your opponents may say. Brainstorm and write down these rebuttals and the POIs for your arguments. This way, in the actual debate, you can whip out your pre-prepared counter-arguments and nullify your opponent's claims. It's a complete knockout, I must say. Hence, boosting your credibility and earning you brownie points with the judges. I quote, "Nothing is as invaluable in debating as knowing how to argue from both sides of the motion." Finally, your arguments. Your arguments will either make or break your debate. Make sure they are well researched and packed full of persuasive strategies. address all three critical arguments. Best debaters know what a sound argument is. It follows a three-step guide. That is to flesh out your arguments. Number one, claim. Reason why you are in favor or against the motion. Number two, evidence. This is the backbone of your arguments actually, and you should consider hard facts and research to support your claim. And finally, impact. Explain the significance of the evidence and how it supports your claim. Debating is an incredible experience. The electric atmosphere in tournaments is something I've never expected elsewhere. There is a huge learning curve to debate, but believe me, it's a fantastic activity and it makes you a better person and you start thinking critically beyond the arena of debates. Hopefully, all my key takeaways on how to win and woo your audience and judges has set the platform for you budding debaters out there. And hopefully it has sparked your passion to be a great debater. As a diehard advocate of debates, I have delivered with conviction, and with that, I rest my case. Keep debating and winning, boys and girls. Good luck, and thank you for watching.
We will now commence our TADC Online 2020 Debate Showcase. I shall now hand over to Mr. Nigel, who will chair the debate showcase.
Mic test. Thank you. All right, so for our highlight this morning, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our highly esteemed panel of judges for this debate showcase. To my left, Ms. Jasbir Kaur, a former national debate adjudicator who is also the chief judge for this debate showcase. Seated next to her, Tunku Halim bin Tunku Abdullah, famed for his passion in writing and a highly accomplished novelist who was also the grand finals judge for TADC 2018 and 2019. Finally, on the far left, Mr. Tony Collingridge, OBE, an esteemed board member of various UK-based organizations and institutions in Malaysia, who is also the grand finals judge for TADC, to introduce the teams that are seated here today. On my right-hand side, Team Government SJIS Catalysts, and on my left-hand side, Team Opposition SJIS Idealists. The motion for today reads, this House believes that lockdown has created societal conflicts during the pandemic. If all debaters are ready, I hereby call upon Prime Minister for the speech which stands in their name. Hear, hear.
Good morning to our honorable judges, distinguished guests, chairperson, and members of the floor. On this beautiful day, the motion given to us is that lockdown creates societal conflicts during the pandemic. As the government team, we are going for this motion. So what is social conflicts? Social conflicts is a struggle for power in a society. What causes social conflicts? It occurs because two or more parties opposes each other. So what is lockdown? Lockdown is a state of isolation or restricted access instituted as a security measure. How does lockdown cause social conflicts? First of all, government weaponizing COVID to gain power. Scarcity of resources. This is due to unfair distribution of income. The more wealthy people are gaining powers, buying out tissue rolls instead of the poor. Recession is caused, and this creates social unrest. Discriminations against the Asians is increasing. Distrust in leaders creates areas of conflicts. Silencing people increases the risk of authorities and distrust in authorities. Mental health decreases. The people with low mental health would want to find someone to blame, and they would often push these blames onto the agents. This increases the racism even more. Thank you.
All right. I thank the Prime Minister for their speech. To open the case on the opposition bench, I welcome Leader of Opposition. Here, here.
Good morning to our honorable judges, our respective timekeeper, and our distinguished guests on the floor and the member of the floor. In this wonderful morning, the motion that we've been given is that this House believes lockdown has created sociable conflicts during the pandemic. And as the opposition, we strongly go against this motion. To begin with, lockdown is a state of isolation or restricted access as a form of security measures. And for during this COVID-19 is in a way of keeping the citizens at home to prevent the spread of the disease. And sociable conflicts, like the government team has defined, is the struggle for agency or power in society. And conflict can be known, conflict might, as in the definition of, for our opposition team, we define conflict as it doesn't always mean in a way of fighting.
POI,
Accept.
does the opposition think abuse is fine?
No.
Yes or no?
No.
Thanks.
So conflicts might not always mean fighting, but in a way, any disputable fact can be a conflict. So, an example would be us debating now against the government team and the opposition team. That can also be considered as a conflict. It does not always mean an aggressive way of fighting against each other. Moving on, crime, according to statistics, proving during this pandemic, it has shown that crime has decreased during the lockdown periods. And through two different models, it have shown, the first model have shown a 5.6% decrease in crime rates, and the second model was has showed a 15% decrease. Moving on, COVID-19 has also allowed people with an echo chamber personality to open up, because previously people were usually internalize their some people would internalize their voice, and they might actually all the issues they might actually keep it to themselves. But now that they have shown, they will start to open up and actually call out. An example would be like in Wuhan, Hubei, China, regarding on they call it as the main source of the COVID-19 pandemic. And as people call it out, the Chinese government will have started to have more awareness onto that, oh, actually this thing happens in our country and at this certain place, and what are we supposed to do to solve it? And with that, I would like to end my speech.
All right. I thank the Leader of Opposition for their speech. I welcome the Deputy Prime Minister for their speech. Here, here.
Good morning, everyone. First, I would like to address rebuttals against the first speaker's points. I have asked the opposition whether they think abuse is okay, and they support having a lockdown in place because of COVID-19. So if they do not think abuse is okay, why do they think that abuse to children because of abusive parents in lockdown is okay? So your points are not aligning with what you say. Also, the first speaker has said crime is decreased. Okay, crime is decreased based on reported crimes. If crimes cannot be reported because of the lockdown that you support, how are the crimes supposed to be written down in your statistic that you claim is correct? Domestic abuse? No, not recognized because of the lockdown you implemented. People are in lockdown, one, and the pain that they might feel if they get raped at home, they can't report it. Why? Lockdown, your fault. So do you support rape? I didn't think so. But you think that lockdown is okay. They might feel scared and... Yeah, sure.
You say that apparently those during domestic abuse, they can't report because of lockdown.
Yeah.
Have you heard of technology?
Yeah, I have. But have you heard of psychological damage? No? Oh, let me tell you about psychological damage. Rape and domestic abuse have hurt the people, not even physically, but mentally. So I don't think that even if they could go and report their crimes, they wouldn't be able to because of the amount of damage the rapists and domestic abusers have applied to them. Now I have shown that the lack of credibility that the opposition have with their points. I will come on with my points. Now keep in mind that I am convincing the judges that our right points are right and their wrong points are wrong. First, the rich have privilege, lack of resources for the poor, mental health declining, recession increasing, and they want to keep the lockdown there. Outrageous. They don't care about the poor. Yeah, sure.
We aren't saying that we should maintain lockdown. This isn't what this debate is about. It's about whether or not societal conflicts have been started from lockdown. We aren't saying keep lockdown in place. We're arguing whether or not these issues have been shown. Understand the topic, please.
Okay, sure, I will. You think that societal conflicts are not started by lockdown. Yeah, sure, societal conflicts have been here and always will be there, whether lockdown is there or not. But an increase in these societal conflicts was caused by the lockdown that you are saying does not have an effect on societal conflicts. I think you need to understand the points here. Also, scarcity and mental health have been declining. Instability between the poor. I don't think the opposition cares about the poor. They only care about the rich and powerful. They need to expand their sights on the whole of the economy, not just the top 20%, top 5% that have millions in their accounts that can afford face masks and that don't have any money to spread out into the economy. Also, government weaponizes, as my first speaker has said, government weaponizes this lockdown, as the opposition is doing right now, into showing that their government has provided a stable economy and have silenced silence their citizens into lockdown. They can't riot, lockdown. They can't speak out against the government, fines. They don't have money to buy masks because y'all are putting them into lockdown, which decreases work opportunity, which decreases their mobility of work, which decreases their daily income. I don't think y'all care about these people. No, nothing. No points about poor people, all about the rich. Now, I think that y'all don't care about the rich. Y'all don't care about the poor. Discrimination on Chinese and Asians, no points there. Also, these people have been discriminated against before. As you said, that these societal rifts have been occurring because of the lock. They have not been occurring because of the lockdown. Well, discrimination against Chinese and Asians have not been occurring. I don't think you read the news. You might be reading these websites, but you don't look at real life facts and evidence. In the US, crime against Asians and Chinese have been increasing. They don't allow them into stores because they think they brought the virus here. But who is the leading cause of the virus? The US. But you don't care about that. Also, long-term solutions. Jeff Bezos, for example, can afford masks every day. Now, this is calculated. Facts. 80 billion days of supply. 80 billion days of mask supplies. Whereas a poor person whose daily income doesn't exceed RM20 a week. Y'all don't care about them. Y'all only care about the rich and powerful. Thank you.
All right. I thank the speaker for their speech. I welcome the Deputy Leader of Opposition here.
Is it working? Is it working? Is it working? Okay. So today, my opposition team is going to argue against the fact that lockdown, the topic suggests that lockdown has created societal conflicts during the pandemic. Societal conflicts does not mean arguing, and societal conflicts has always existed, whether being locked down or not, as stated by the second speaker in the government team. The fact that being forced in lockdown, there's a source that suggests that the Deputy Minister of the Women and Family Development Ministry, Dato Siti Zaila Muhammad Yusuf, quotes that there is indeed a slight increase in domestic violence cases, largely due to stress of abusive partners from being confined to their homes. The situation is, however, still under control. When those victims of abuse before lockdown, they have an excuse to escape from their homes. But by being forced in lockdown, they have either two options. They can either have a one-on-one talk with their abuser and actually consolidate their they can better their relationship, or if it gets worse, they have helplines. They have professional helplines, and they cannot deny. They cannot. Their only source of escape is through these professional helplines and sources, such as the Women's Aid Organization. Next, I would like to explain my points that my first speaker has mentioned. Crime has reduced.
POI?
Decline. Crime has reduced, but domestic violence has increased. But being in a lockdown, those people with internalized conflicts, they have no choice
POI?
but. Let me finish my okay. Being in lockdown, people are willing to seek help because they can't escape from this matter. Except
Oh, yes. Do you favor favoritism?
favoritism?
Yes. Do you favor it?
No.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Next, I would like to rebut on the point that discrimination against Asians, or more so the fact of America preventing Chinese people from buying supplies because they think they brought the virus and so forth. But because people are being actively racist against Chinese people in this case, it will actually show the ugly truth that people just blindly
discriminate against these people, and it will provide a catalyst for the government to take action, and it will help improve society. Next.
POI?
Accept?
So you do think that racism is good for the community because you think it betters community?
No.
That's what you said. I heard you say that.
I didn't say racism is good. I'm
Yeah, you did.
saying
You said government can better the
Order.
thing. So is it a yes or a no?
I didn't specifically said racism is good. It's because of this racism that has already happened. The government can take action.
Okay, so yes.
Okay.
Another POI?
Decline. As I've mentioned before, domestic abuse cases are being brought out more so before. The violence has already happened, and because of the lockdown, the process has been sped up, and people can either choose to seek help. People get to know that victims of abuse are present. And do I have anything else? And also, when you asked our team on the point that we only focus on the rich and the powerful, those with low income, I have an example for you that France, they have provided free hotel payments for victims of abuse. So they have provided hotel payments for the victims of abuse, and this is a step taken to prevent domestic abuse to keep happening. And because we know that domestic violence exists, we now have to take action against this. I would like to end my speech here. Thank you.
All right. I thank the Deputy Leader of Opposition for their speech. I welcome the government whip for their speech. Here.
Okay, good morning to all of the judges, members of the opposition, and members of the floor. I would first like to start this by addressing a contradiction that you guys made. So first, the first speaker of the opposition team said that conflict doesn't have to be aggressive, which alludes to conflict being some sort of disagreement. But then the second speaker goes on to say that conflict does not mean arguing. So there's clearly a contradiction in what you consider conflict to be. Another thing that I would like to address is the first speaker, by saying that conflicts do not have to be aggressive and alluding that conflict refers to disagreement, suggests that by their argument, they are saying that disagreements between different people has not occurred due to the lockdown. This is clearly not the case, because you can see all over the world that certain people are protesting against the lockdown and some people are protesting for the lockdown. And there's this ongoing debate in society as to whether health is more important or if the economy is more important. So clearly we can see that there is a disagreement and conflict there. Yeah.
My first speaker has mentioned that society conflict does not equal physical arguments.
He did not use the word physical.
He did.
He used the word conflict does not have to be aggressive, or which alludes to if it's not physical, that means it's verbal. It's a disagreement, which proves my point, because you have disagreements that are either physical or not physical. If they're not physical, they're a disagreement. So you're agreeing with me here. So another thing that the first speaker mentioned is the decreasing crime rates. My second speaker has rebutted that. But a decreasing crime rate does not mean there is less conflicts. There are conflicts that occur in other areas, such as the racism that we have pointed out, domestic violence, and ongoing issues, mental health issues that create more outrage in the society, creating riots and creating more protests than usual. The issue of scarcity, which my second speaker has mentioned, regarding how the rich have the opportunity and the ability to buy out everything in the markets while leaving the poor with a lack of resources. The economy is falling. These are all social conflicts that are at hand here. The government weaponizes this lockdown situation to gain favor of the public by saying, hey, look, we've dealt with the issue really well, when this is all just part of their political propaganda. And so this is used to create more societal conflict. And lockdowns can also be used as a form of silencing people, preventing protests, and all these things. Now, another rebut that I would like to make is on the second speaker. She addressed that, hey, domestic violence is under control, and being in a lockdown will encourage a one-on-one talk with the abuser, which makes no sense. Because if you're an abuser, it's clear that you have a psychological problem. And if you have a psychological problem, no such communication is going to be effective. Why didn't you sit down and talk before the lockdown? Why didn't you get that sorted out before the lockdown? The lockdown only provides a bigger opportunity for the perpetrator to continue to perpetuate their domestic violence. And plus, another thing that you mentioned was helplines. How on earth is helplines going to help you? Helplines are there to help you release stress and internal conflicts through communicating with them on the line, feeling like someone is there for you. And it's great to do that. But when physical violence is the problem, you're going to have physical implications. You're going to have injuries. You're going to have things that do harm to you physically. And helplines can't save you from that. And if there's an obstruction of escape by your abuser, or if aid and these sorts of things don't prevent that from happening, they just treat it. And so it can be argued that lockdowns do perpetuate domestic violence and abuse. And you said that people in lockdowns are more willing to seek help since they don't have an escape. There's no statistics to prove this. And this is just an assumption because it makes no sense. If you understand the psychological dynamic and the dominance hierarchy within an abusive relationship, it's obvious that the people don't seek help in general. They could seek help before, but they're not willing to seek help in general because of that psychological dominance power struggle that's going on. People silence themselves. There's nothing restricting them from speaking out, but they do that because of the psychological dynamic, as I've mentioned. Another thing is about discrimination. What you said is people blindly discriminate, and you admit that discrimination and racism against the Chinese happens. So you admit this happens. So let me get this straight here. You admit racism happens because of this situation, yet you say this is not a conflict. That's what I want to get. You say that lockdown does not create conflict, but you admit that the Chinese are facing discrimination and racism.
Yeah.
Yeah?
To answer, yeah.
Okay. And then you say that these kinds of situations will encourage the government to take action and improve society. So you're saying there is a societal conflict. That's why the government needs... Huh?
UI.
Yeah.
To clarify my point, the discrimination already happened. So because of this happening, the government really can take action.
Already happened when? Before all this happened? Before the pandemic?
Before pandemic, during this pandemic, discrimination already happens.
So it's not perpetuating.
Perpetuating?
It's not continuing. More cases are not happening because of this pandemic. Is that what you're saying?
You mean domestic violence?
I mean discrimination.
I mean discrimination?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's continuing to happen.
Yeah, but the government can take action from it.
But are they?
Order. One question.
Okay. If you're saying that the government can take action against something, it means something has occurred. And if something has occurred, that means societal conflict has occurred. And finally, you say that, for example, in France, hotels have payments for victims of abuse. Again, this is treatment. This is not prevention. It doesn't say anything about how this issue is not created in the first place. It just shows, oh, we're helping you out. Helping you out is not the same thing as preventing these things from happening or saying that these things don't happen. So I'll just finally go over that's it. Thank you.
All right. I thank the government whip for her speech. To conclude today's debate, I welcome opposition whip. Here.
Test? Okay. Sorry, 1 second. Good afternoon. My name is Jamie. I will be the opposition whip. And first, I would like to summarize my team's points. So essentially, our main point is built on this, that we have multiple points. The first of which is that the crime rate has gone down. There are two separate studies. The first one saying that crime has gone down 5.5 5.6%, and another saying that crime has gone down 15%. Conflict has gone down. And of course, the government team may say things like domestic abuse cases are increasing, but that's not the case. The reports of domestic abuse cases are increasing. These cases of domestic abuse have always been happening. Only now more of it is being reported. And governments around the world are acting to try and fix this. For example, in France, the French government are allowing victims of domestic abuse to stay in hotels, and the French government will cover the bills for this. So therefore, it is prevention of abuse, because how can abuse happen if the abuser is at home and the victim is in the hotel? They are now protected.
POI.
Decline. Now, as my first speaker has brought up before, people are inside an echo chamber where they'll just say things and it'll just echo back to them. COVID-19 has created a hole in this echo chamber. Now everybody are hearing their opinions. This is a very, very good thing, because now we are able to call out these people. Everybody will know what's really happening. Next point. Now I'd like to go on to my rebuttals. Oh, sorry. One last piece of my summary. As the Minister of the Women and Family Development Ministry, the Deputy Minister has said that there has been an increase in domestic violence cases reported, but a 57% increase from the national hotline, Talian Kase. But now the situation is still under control. Next, I'd like to go on to my rebuttals. Now, the first speaker, the second speaker, the third speaker, one of their main points of the government team is that wealthy people are taking advantage of this. They are benefiting from this, and the poor are being thrown to the curb and spit on. Now, it's true that unemployment is increasing, especially among people who are in poverty, increasing poverty therefore. But the government, for example, in Malaysia, there is a B40 program where the bottom 40% of income gainers are supplemented with government pay, so they are able to survive this while they still can. And
POI.
Decline. And there are house payments and car payments are delayed for about 6 months, so they can survive during this time. And so the government team has also said that wealthy people are buying all the supplies that are necessary to this before the poor people are able to buy these products. It's always been like this, and not just with the situation now. It's always been like this. This COVID-19 isn't causing wealthy people to buy things before poor people and increasing that gap between rich and poor. Instead, it is just another example of what the rich are doing. It's always been happening. It's just another example.
POI?
Next would accept.
Are you denying that stock buying is occurring because of the lockdown?
I am not at all. I'm saying that stock buying has always been occurring, not just when it comes to this. This is just another example. Now, I'd like to give another rebuttal of the government team. They have said that mental health is going down, and this will make people want to blame somebody, and this will cause more protests in the streets. This is a baseless accusation. From last time I checked, none of the government team has a degree in psychology. They're saying that this is all based on psychology. It's all based in the facts, the science, but it's baseless. They didn't give a doctor or a psychologist who is saying so. They're saying this baseless. There's no proof of this actually occurring. Next would be The second speaker specifically said that reports of domestic abuse is going down. No, it has increased. It's increased dramatically. There's a 57% increase in calls, and this was just in the first month of lockdown. It has increased. Next, the third speaker has said that, regarding what my second speaker said, that French hotels isn't prevention. As I've said in my summary earlier, it is prevention. The victims are being housed away from the abusers. Okay, and to continue, the third speaker has said that hotlines are useless. They're just meant to vent. Now, okay, let me ask you this. Have you ever heard of emergency hotlines like 999? They provide services. One example of a hotline is, yes, like what we said, where domestic abuse hotlines. But another emergency hotline is 999. Women who are now in lockdown, victims of domestic abuse who are now in lockdown, who are now stuck with their abusers, are forced to face this. But not just them. All of us are being forced to face how serious of a problem this is now. We cannot plead ignorance anymore. We are now being shown straight to the face of the problem of domestic abuse. Now, the government team wants to say that racism has increased, but it's increased constantly, and now people are being exposed because of this. With that, I'd like to end my speech.
Right. I thank all debaters for that engaging debate. We're going to give our judges some time for them to deliberate. Sorry. Okay, sorry. We have the concluding cases on both slides. Speaker first. Yeah.
Hello. Hello. To summarize our entire to summarize the opposition's points, we technically says that the lockdown does not create any sociable conflicts, but instead it exposes and shows its true colors. And you have shown that crime has decreased by, as previously mentioned, according to statistics, and people with an echo chamber personality has so voiced out. And so technically, in a way that all these social conflicts are inevitable. The pandemic has only shown that and exposed these conflicts. An example is like how the government has spitted out tons of statistics, but these all statistics are only recorded because they are reported. So they might say that during the lockdown, this sort of statistics has increased by how many percent. But before the lockdown, these cases may not be reported, similar to the concept as domestic abuse. Domestic abuse, the reported cases of domestic abuse has increased during the lockdown because those people are forced to face their abusers all the time until, to an extent, they can't take it anymore, which ultimately lead to an increasing number of reported cases. And as for their statistics, it's also in the same way that before lockdown, there might be still the same number of still the same number of cases. In fact, it might be even more, but just that it is not reported out. So it can clearly prove that their statistics might not be that reliable according to the if you are comparing it to the true cases that happened and those that did not, those that have been reported and those that have not been reported. And with that, I would like to end my speech.
All right. Thank the speaker for their speech. Welcome the government reply speaker. Here.
I would like to address something. I would like to tell the judges that their whole argument is that all of our points, if we say, like we said, deaths, um, conflicts between people, rape, and domestic abuse have all occurred before lockdown. So I'd like to provide you with an example. Before World War One, people have died. After World War One, people have also died. Are you telling me the increase in deaths after World War One has nothing to do with World War One? Because that's the same thing you're saying. The things like domestic abuse have increased because of the lockdown. Now, another thing is that y'all said is about hotlines. Oh, yeah, sure. I am getting abused. Let me just call up a hotline. The abuser will stop. It's quite simple. And another thing is that France has provided hotels for victims and abuse. Yeah, all other countries follow the footsteps of France. Africa has hotels for abusers. The US has hotels for abusers. Wow, y'all's spectrum is really large, huh? Iceland has hotels for abusers. Y'all need to broaden your spectrum, please. The only country in Earth is not France. Also, I'd like to give reasons why our team should win. We have given statistics that y'all said are wrong. And also, another thing is, y'all said that we are not psychologists. So, are you an abuser? You seem to know a lot about abuse. Are you an abuser? I don't think y'all an abuser. You don't call us psychologists. So, I'm calling y'all abusers. So, if you deny that, you're telling your own points are wrong. So, I take it that y'all are abusers. Also, that our points have full concrete basis. We have points. We have statistics. What do y'all have? Huh? Oh, nothing. Yeah. Y'all, the only points y'all have is, which is not even credible, is that all these things that we have mentioned have already occurred before lockdown. Sure, they have occurred, but y'all are ignoring the increase of these activities after the lockdown. So I'd like to show you the incompetence of the opposition in facing facts and evidence. Thank you.
All right. I thank all debaters for their speeches. We can now conclude this debate and give our judges some time to deliberate. Debate. I'm going to be passing it over to Ms. Jasper Kaur, and she's going to give our results today.
Thank you, Nigel. Pleasant morning, everyone. On behalf of our panel of educators, I would like to congratulate the debaters, SGIS Catalyst, Proposition Government Team, and SGIS Idealist, our opposition team on today's TADC Online 2020 Showcase debate. Give them a big round of applause. Now, teams do not lose because they made a mistake or because they were not perfect. The decision is determined based on who, on balance, was better able to persuade you of their side and met their burden compared to the other team. Now, in today's debate, we did see some flaws which were not really perfected in their speech. If we go by the review of the 3 M's of education, where we take in consideration matter, manner, and method, there were some flaws in the sense that overall the delivery, we felt we were not given enough time to prepare. So it didn't come out as we would expect it. So considering that, some of the arguments raised were good, but we could not follow the structure of your arguments. Now, it's very important to have a strong opening, like I said, and then you need to define the topic, especially the first speakers. You have the onus is on you to define the topic to us and to specify the role of your teammates. What are the arguments they're going to talk about? That didn't come across very well. Secondly, the arguments. In your case line, you have to address 3 critical arguments, but we did not get to get the structure of your 3 arguments. So we were hearing examples and we were hearing, what should I say, a distorted train of thoughts. Now this again, I feel is because of the 15 minutes you have been given to prepare. But having said that, there are certain things you need to follow. POIs. When you ask POIs, ideally you should be answering 2 POIs and asking 2 POIs. You should not be sarcastic, or you should not mark your opponent down when a certain thing is said, and you have that back and forth in heckling that person. That is not debate parliamentary style. It's not exactly. So you need to take your POIs, 2 POIs per person. Either you answer or you interject. But some of you went over the POI limit. So I did notice one of the speakers raising his hand to point it out to me. Yeah. All right. So POIs are actually marked down in your strategy, which is your method. All right. Secondly, we judges, the panel felt that the points that were raised were not really well developed. You could have done a better job with it, and examples were almost repetitive. All right. And finally, please maintain the politeness of a debate proceeding. You have to be polite at all times. Remember, this is a formal discussion. As I said, it's an argument governed by rules and conventions, right? Anything else? Did I miss out? Anything else? Oh, yes, yes, true. As Tunku said it, the opposition felt intimidated by the government team, and we don't want that message or vibe to come across, right? You should have a friendly sparring match. Yeah, you don't need to intimidate them, especially Speaker One, right? Yeah, so having said that, I do congratulate both the teams for having taken the time and effort to put in their what should I say, their 2 cents of worth, because you did have very little time. But please remember, you need to follow the structure. Like I pointed out in my session just now, you need a good introduction or an opening. You need to define the topic, which is very essential for the first speaker to do it. You need to have signposting, which we could not follow. That's why we were lost. Actually, I was zoned out after the introduction. I didn't know what's happening actually. I didn't know where to put you in your speech structure. I couldn't follow. So you need that signposting to navigate us through your speech. Otherwise, we are lost, all right? And then your rebuttals have to come on strong. Okay, this is the crux of the debate proceedings. You need to really have strong conviction about your rebuttals. And finally, your arguments. You need to address 3 critical arguments. It has to be stated by your first speaker and your second speaker. Then only we are able to follow through the debate proceedings. All right. So with that said, now the moment of truth. Now remember, every result, win or lose, is an opportunity for the debater to learn the art of persuasion. All right. So the moment of truth, as we, the panel of adjudicators, have assessed your debate proceedings, the team that convinced us of the motion is. The motion is carried. Just to check, since I was also like zoned out for a while. The motion is carried and the result is in favor of the proposition team SGIS Catalyst. Congratulations and thank you one and all.
I think the point that you need to
That's 1, 2, 3. Yes.
prize giving ceremony by inviting TADC Chairman Tunku Datuk Sri Dr. Iskandar Tunku Abdullah and to be accompanied by Mr. Henry Low, Corporate Strategy Director, Sasbadi Holding Berhad. I would like to call upon the runner-up, SJIS Idealists, to receive their prizes. Prizes in the form of Lingua Skill English Proficiency Certification Test by Cambridge Assessment English are sponsored by the Sasbadi Education Group. Now, let us put our hands together to the grand champion of TADC Online 2020, SJIS Catalyst. Well done, team. The winning team would also receive prizes in cash. Thank you, Tunku and Mr. Henry. We have now come to the last segment of TADC Online 2020. We welcome all our viewers to participate in TADC Write a Slogan contest, and here is the announcement. Please submit your entry by visiting our social media platform, SJIS and Direct English Malaysia, immediately after this event, and please follow the instructions given. You will need to submit your entry by providing your name, age, IC number, telephone number, as well as your email address through the link. You will then need to write a slogan in not more than 15 words. TADC is a debate challenge that this is to be continued in not more than 15 words. You are allowed to submit only one entry and it must be submitted by 18 August 2020. Results will be announced via the social media platform of SJIS and Direct English Malaysia on 25th August 2020. The four most creative slogans stand to win a free sitting for Lingua Skill, the globally recognized English Proficiency Certification Test by Cambridge Assessment English. Prizes are sponsored by Sasbadi Education Group. We shall now end TADC Online 2020. We would like to thank all our speakers, judges, debaters, sponsor, and all the viewers for being with us today. Thank you and wishing all of you to have a great weekend ahead.